Morning everybody. How lovely it is to see everybody here in London. I'm very excited. I've just come up from Lincoln pretty much, so me and Kiki have done a kind of like swap. Thank you all for coming. It's quite a precious time, isn't it? Saturdays when I guess a lot of us have got children, so precious time, and I think it's lovely that everybody's here, and the buzz in the coffee room earlier was just amazing. So my name's Mia Scotland. I'm a clinical psychologist trained in the NHS, and I burnt out, to be honest, and had babies and realised that having babies is quite an important part of our lives, and was fascinated by the impact that has. So I've never gone back in the NHS actually since doing birth stuff. Trained to be a doula, I don't know, quite a long time ago now, because people were saying to me in my hypnobirthing classes, can you be at the birth? And I'm like, no. And I thought, oh, I better do something about that odd reaction in me that says no. So I thought I'll train up and just be a bit more confident, and then I got the bug. So that's me, I don't know what else. And I've written this book, which Pinter and Martin want me to mention to you. I must do this, otherwise I'll forget. And there's a few of us here that will be doing book signings in the coffee break. So bear that in mind if you want a signed book. My signature's lovely, it's worth it, honestly. So, sane mothers in a crazy world. I kind of feel when I'm talking with doulas that you already get everything I want to say. But in a way, it's about just validating what we already know and giving us a bit more courage to take that forward, if that makes any sense. A lot of what I'm talking about is about destigmatizing emotional problems. And culture is a big, big issue in mental health problems, and it often gets ignored. And I think if we ignore cultural issues, we blame the individual. When they're in, the stigma might start to kind of grow. So I don't know if you know this story, but this is the story of a fish in the sea, and the fish meets a crab, and the crab says, oh, I've just been up on land, and the fish says, wow, that sounds interesting, what is land like? And the crab says, oh, well, there's sand, and it's gritty in between your claws, and there's a sun in the sky, and there's no water. And the fish says, wow, I love the sound of the sand and the sun. But the fish says, but what's water? Has no idea, because he's in it, and that's what our culture's like. Because we're in it, we don't always see it. So our culture can be completely crazy, and we don't realise it. A friend of mine was talking to me the other day, I can't remember why, about an incident on a plane where a woman needed to take off her headscarf, and she didn't want to. And the staff were getting quite aerated. I can't remember why. She was overheating or something. Did this hit the headlines? I've no idea where this story came from. So this woman was overheating. She needed to take some clothes off, but she wouldn't take her headscarf off. And my friend was saying, how crazy is that? Fancy not taking headscarf off just because, you know, you put yourself in danger of dehydrating. And I said, well, imagine if the staff had said to you, you need to take your top and bra off on the plane. How would you feel doing that if you were overheating? Would you easily take your top and bra off? And she went, oh no, and then just got it. Again, that's just an example of sometimes you need to kind of step it out and see why other people might see what we do as crazy, but we can't see it. Does that make sense? Okay. So, perinatal mental health in general, not just perinatal. The other thing is that we are all a product of our society. Yeah? Again, it kind of seems obvious, but not everybody, I think, gets this sometimes. Our society builds us. You can't develop, you can't become a person without your society. It's like you can't learn to talk without people talking with you. Our language will only develop in a cultural environment. The potential's there, but it won't happen unless you've got people to talk to. So depending on which cultural society you come from, you're going to have differing health issues. This is true physically and emotionally. The other thing I really want to get across is that mental health is on a continuum. Well, it is if you're a psychologist. If you're a psychiatrist, it's not necessarily. Anybody here a psychiatrist or in mental health on the medical side of things? No? You are? So psychiatry sees mental health as a disease, so they follow the disease model. Something goes wrong in you, whether it's physical or mental, and then you need to be fixed. But psychologists see it more as a continuum, okay? So we're all on this continuum of mental health. We've got the best mental health at this end, on the days when everything's going really well and you feel amazing, and then we have the worst mental health down that end. And we do this, we go up and down this line all the time, all of us, all right? And some people spend most of the time down the healthy end. Some people, unfortunately, struggle most of the time down the unhealthy end, but we move up and down all the time. So we're all talking about us when we talk about mental health. We're not talking about people who are ill. And finally, the final kind of principle is that the physical and the mental are intertwined. So we still have this, I think it's crazy, dichotomy between mental and physical, and it's been going on ever since, what, 1600s, before that actually, when Descartes actually, officially separated the two, if you like. But we know from science and psychology and research, and it's actually really, really exciting what's coming through at the moment, that you just can't separate them out. As you know, one impacts on the other. A bit like you can't separate red and blue from the colour purple. It's kind of one colour. So I think that's quite exciting. Okay, so I wanted to just give you, so I've put there that different societies have different health issues. So one example of that might be problems with obsessional compulsive disorder, okay? They're very, very culturally relevant. So the kind of things that people struggle with OCD will be dependent on what our culture is emphasising. So if you think about perinatal OCD and the OCD you might see with parents and mothers, what are the issues usually around that? Can anybody, what might they be? Any idea? What are they worried about? Separation. So that's what's underlying the anxiety. But the anxiety, like the symptoms specifically, is usually about cleanliness or germs, and that wouldn't have been the case 100 years ago. 100 years ago, it would have been worrying about being good enough in terms of Christianity and not sinning in terms of not having thoughts that might be sexual or sinful in some way. So OCD is still there because of underlying issues of lack of control and separation, but the way it's expressed changes according to the culture that you're in. Okay. So when I wrote the book, no, it wasn't when I wrote the book. When I started to do a workshop on this, I researched what other cultures do in terms of becoming a mother. And so I just want to take you through some of these. So there's a kind of generality in a lot of other cultures that we don't hold, which is for about 4 to 6 weeks after birth, as you know, the mother gets looked after, she gets mothered. So just to give you some little examples. So in Japan, for example, the mother gets wrapped up in blankets, as does the baby. Not much skin to skin, okay? And the mother gets put to bed, and she just has to eat, feed the baby and recover, and other people will feed her. And I was talking about this up, I can't remember where it was now, it might have been Huddersfield, and one of the women in the audience said that she's a postnatal midwife, and she said only last week in the ward we had a Japanese mother and the staff were laughing behind her back because she was being spoon-fed. The parents wanted to spoon-feed this mother, and the staff were like, really? And so they asked her for a spoon, they didn't have a spoon. And they were watching her spoon-feeding this mother. And I just thought, what a shame that they were laughing about it. And when she told me, she obviously did feel that that was actually quite inappropriate. Anyway, so in India, which of course we see a lot more of than Japanese, so the first 40 days are seen as a confinement period as well, where you're meant to recuperate, gain strength and bond with your new baby. And in some areas, apparently, new mothers are given a full body massage every day. Oh, can you imagine? That's where we're going wrong. I need a full body massage every day. And food is also a big part. So massage, food and rest. So in Hispanic countries, they call it, I don't speak Spanish, anybody can say this for me? La cuarentena, something like that. Same thing, 40 days or 6 weeks. The new mum just is there to breastfeed, take care of her baby and herself. Other people will pitch in to cook, clean, care for the children, make her special soups, special meals. And when that period is over, she can surface. Malaysia, Pantang. That I don't know how to say that either. That's but again, it's lovely doing this because sometimes, last time I did this, a Malaysian woman, midwife, said, "Oh, that's so exciting, that's exactly what it's like in Malaysia," and you could see her eyes lit up at the thought of this. So again, 44 days. Now, during the Pantang period, is that how you say that? She receives hot stone massages to cleanse the womb. I know, how nice. And a full body exfoliation treatment, which is said to smooth, soften and lighten the skin, chasing away postpartum body changes. And moms are not allowed to do anything. All you do is nurse the baby. You just have to stay in bed. Oh. All the household chores fall to other people, and they do hire in help if they need to. So I blogged about this, and in my blog someone wrote, "Oh, in China they do something called sitting the month." That's genuine Chinese writing. How impressive is that? Anybody here know Chinese? I'll find out I've written something like "hedgehogs are dead" or something. So she writes, her name's Dana, "I can attest that in Chinese culture it's imperative for new mothers to nest for a month. It's called sitting the month, during which time she does nothing but stay in bed with the baby and is secluded from visitors and the elements. She's not even supposed to bathe in case she catches a chill. Rich marrow-based soups are made for her to help her recover from labour and heal. And meals are served to her in bed." And then she writes, I think she's from the States, "This is great if you happen to give birth in the fall, but it sucks when you birth in July. We have to, not even allowed out of the house." So you can see the same theme, taking care of the mother, making the mother stay still and rest. And can you imagine what the benefits of that might be? I mean, maybe they're crazy, I don't know, but you can kind of intuitively, especially when you're postnatal doulas, get a strong sense of how good that must be for the bonding, the breastfeeding, the body, the healing. It just makes intuitive sense, doesn't it? Excellent. So what's happening in the UK? Yeah, quite a lot happens, but it's not being done for the mother. So we're told rest when baby rests. That's great, thank you. That's really helpful. What if the baby doesn't rest? What if I have no idea if the baby's going to rest for 5 minutes or 2 hours? There's another one, isn't it? Leave the housework, it'll wait. Right, okay. So, but do I have to live in the house while I leave it? Yeah. I don't like living in my own. Okay. And then there's a pressure, isn't there, to carry on as usual. So that involves your own housework, dieting if that's your thing. Partner goes back to work, you're left, and this is very gender, what's the word? Gender, I can't think of the word, huh? Stereotyped, for the sake of illustration. If the woman is at home, she's the one usually left with the shopping and still the socialising as well, having to manage all the visits, etc. And again, what's the advice with regards to visiting? Don't let too many people visit for too long. So who's going to stop them? I mean, who really, when you've just had a new baby, has got the strength to say, "I'm so sorry, thank you for coming to see me, but I'm going to bed, bye." I mean, that's not easy to do, is it? As you know, there's a pressure to get back to normal, whatever that means, as quickly as possible. Even getting out of the hospital. How quickly can you get out of the hospital now? 6 hours, isn't it? I've seen a woman leave after 3 hours. Don't get me wrong, I know women want to go, but why do they want to go? Why do they not want to stay and be looked after and rest? There is actually a midwife-led unit near where I am in Melton where women want to stay. Like, "Can I stay another night?" And the midwife's like, "Yeah, of course you can," because they really get looked after. They want to close it, of course. And one thing that I really, really struggle with is that it is common to leave a new mother, or even an old mother, alone in the house with a baby. And that to me just feels really, really wrong. And it reminded me of the tragic story of Geldof. What was her name? Peaches Geldof. She was on her own in that house with 2 little babies, wasn't she? Nobody even batted an eyelid at that. But that's not, to me, that's actually, we do that without even thinking all the time. But what are the ramifications of that? And things like having to go to antenatal appointments when your baby's 2 days old. Isn't that crazy? Get up, get dressed, get on a bus. I don't understand it. Okay. So again, when one of the replies I had on one of my blogs about this, she wrote this, which I thought was quite pertinent. She said, "It's a woman-hating society where as a single mother I begged for weeks for support, right from GP to early childhood health nurses, a social worker and lastly mental health service, when the compounded sleep deprivation and then incompetence by these so-called professionals," she's still a bit cross, "became too much. In turn, I was reported to the CPS and victimised for complaining. Thankfully, I had a solid, sound advocate on side when every other system had failed. My last resort was to book myself into hospital with baby in tow, and those 4 hours of sleep did wonders." Anyway, she gets a bit crosser. "By the way, I never went on to have any more children, but I am in the process of completing my bachelor's in early childhood education. When I'm done, I will study law. I'm going to be the change I want to see in the world, thanks to a traumatising, dehumanising system stacked against mothers from day one. It's my passion to ensure the abuse I suffered at the hands of ineptitude does not happen to others." Okay. Another example, which isn't quite as moving as that lovely example, is my friend Julia. She's just had a baby, which is lovely. And I'm so excited because she lives around the corner from me. So I saw her husband a few days after they got home, and I said to him, I said, "You know what?" I said, "Stay in bed. This is your baby moon. This is special. Dad, I did all that bit you do, which nobody really wants to hear." And he laughed. He said, "Yeah, that's so funny." I said, "No, I'm serious." I said, "I meant it. Is she out of bed already?" He said, "Yeah, she's doing her tax returns. Her sister's gone skiing because she runs a business with her sister." But honestly, it was a joke. They couldn't understand that I meant it. I mean, she should stay in bed. I said to him, "You put her to bed." I said, and keep her there for 2 days. And he's like, "Yeah, whatever." Weird comment coming from me. And I thought, gosh, that just says a lot, doesn't it? How as postnatal doulas, we can't even sometimes get people to understand that we mean it when we're saying rest. She's doing really well, by the way. Okay. What time is it? Am I right for time? Effects of lack of sleep on mental health. I think sleep's the big one here, isn't it? Mainly, I would argue. And again, the advice people are giving is, you won't know what is going to hit you. Oh, you won't know lack of sleep like it. As if it's funny, but actually it's not funny. And one of the reasons it's not funny is because it's dangerous not to sleep, okay? Now, we've always known that lack of sleep is correlated with mental health problems. Almost everybody who has mental health problems has sleep problems. And we always used to think, oh, well, it's because you're anxious or upset or disturbed that you're not getting proper quality sleep. But there's been some research done which suggests actually it could be the other way around. It could be the lack of sleep that leads to mental health problems, okay? So I'll give you one study which kind of blew my mind a little bit. So what they did was they got, in this study, they got a load of healthy students, split them into two. In one half, they were given a normal full night's sleep. The other half were sleep deprived for one night, just one night. And then the next day, they were put under an MRI scan, which is where you can see what's happening in the brain, and just got them to look at photographs, okay? Got that? Two different groups. One hasn't had any sleep, the other has. Young, healthy students. And they showed them images increasingly disturbing and upsetting, okay? And what they found was the brain patterns in both of those groups was very, very different. In the sleep-deprived group, the alarm system in the brain, the part that worries and gets anxious and goes, ooh, that part, was firing off like crazy. In the normal group, what happens normally is that part fires off, and then you go, oh, no, it's all right, actually, because, and your brain kind of does a reasoning, rationalising thing. So, for example, if I was frightened of mice, everybody here okay with this example? And I'm outside and I see something sweep across the floor, I'm very likely to have a massive startle response, and then my brain's going to go, oh, it's a leaf, it's okay, right? But that, oh, it's a leaf, it's okay part wasn't working properly in the people who'd been sleep deprived. Does that make sense? In other words, their anxiety was running rampant. And these are people with absolutely no signs of anxiety beforehand. So one night, lack of sleep can lead to quite strong, anxious brain patterns in young, healthy people. Imagine what 2 or 3 nights of lack of sleep does because you've been in labour for 2 or 3 days, and then you go home and then you never really catch up. So not only do you have acute sleep deprivation, which means, you know, one spell of no sleep, but you also get chronic sleep deprivation because you're never really catching up on yourself. I think this is massive in terms of people's mental health, and it may well be, there's no research yet to say that, it may well be that one of the reasons we have such high levels of postnatal depression, and we do, is because women aren't sleeping. That might be enough to explain quite a large portion of it. Research isn't out there to tell us that yet. So as the author writes, I think we may start to think about a new potential function for sleep. It does actually prepare our emotional brains for next day social and emotional interactions. So, as you know, labour wards and postnatal wards are not conducive to sleep in any way, shape or form. Am I being unfair to say that? They're just horrific places, aren't they? If you want a nice rest, they're not exactly spas. And neither is life with a new baby in our culture because, as I say, mothers are up and about very quickly. So, mothering for the new mother is very important. This photo is taken from, I don't know the difference, I can never work out the difference between net moms and mums net. I think it's mums net, this one. And they have a section particularly for Indian and Asian cultures. And this photo was the first thing you saw on postnatal, and I thought, well, we don't have a photo like that on the non-Asian page. Immediately you can see this message coming through that we need to take care of new mothers. And taking care of new mothers does a number of things, apart from just physically letting her rest. It provides something called containment. Containment is the ability to calm somebody's anxiety down. We do it all the time as mothers, okay? Child's anxious about something, and our job is to calm the child down by the way that we are. And the way we are usually is calm as well. I'm not going to calm my child down if I go, oh my gosh, you've got an exam tomorrow? Right, we need to calm down about this. I've got to be calm when I'm helping my child calm about exams. You guess how old my children are? So new mothers need this, and I think one of the problems with mothers being alone, mothers and fathers being alone in a house with a baby, is there's nobody around with that wisdom, if you like. I wonder who could fill that role. And there's no one around with that wisdom and that kind of calm knowing that helps everybody to just, you know, not stay so paranoid about whether the baby is breathing or not, for example. Role modelling. So this is just watching somebody do something and learning from doing that. I remember when I had my first baby, having to sort out the nappy thing, and a friend of mine came over. I don't know how old the baby was. He might have only been a week or something. And she said, oh, I'll change the nappy for you. And I went to get the wipes, and she'd done it, and I'm like, holy crap, how did you do that? And it made me want to watch her, because I thought, I can learn by watching you. So I've been there, I don't know what I was doing, but it took forever. And because she'd had babies, she did it very, very quickly. But of course, you're not just role modelling how to change a nappy, you're role modelling what to do when the baby sleeps. Do you remember that feeling when you bring the baby home and you go, what do I do now? What do I do with it? You know, you don't have to do anything with it, it's sleeping, just go and do something else. Even that can take a little bit of time, can't it, for new parents to understand. Strong physical support, somebody who's got the energy to get up and clean and look after things and, I don't know, carry shopping, whatever that might be. And empathic love, care and nurturing. That's all, you know, we are doulas, so we love all this side of things, but what's lovely is there's a massive evidence base behind it, right? Being lovely to people is healthy. It activates the oxytocin system. The oxytocin system heals you. It literally heals you from infection, problems, cancer, you name it, high blood pressure. The oxytocin system is our rest and restore system. So it's very, very important to help people to be okay, to have that empathic love, care and nurturing. So if we haven't got a postnatal doula, if we haven't got a mother, because we don't want the mother there, or we don't want the mother-in-law there, who have we got there? And usually we've got just the two of them. Again, I'm exaggerating for the benefit of illustration, but fathers are kind of trying to fill this gap, don't you think? Ooh, excuse me. So they're rushing around trying to clean and do the washing and look after her and sort the visitors out and learn how to change the baby's nappy and bath the baby, without that containment, without that wisdom there to help him stay nice and calm too. And we know that postnatal depression in fathers is, in some research, higher than what they found in women. So we, you know, who knows, you can make up the figures, can't you? But the point is that almost all the research looking at perinatal mental health in fathers is showing quite shockingly high rates of suffering in men as well as in women. Okay. So attachment, I don't know what's happened to my little pictures, they've moved, I didn't do that. That says, what is the process of attachment? So basically, this is just looking at the physiology and the psychology of bonding. Very, very important, as you know. It goes wrong in animals, in mammals, and in human beings. And we don't know, we know what causes it in mammals, we know what to look out for and what to make sure doesn't happen in mammals, but we don't really know with humans. What we know with humans is it can be rectified, but we don't know much at all about how to do that or when it's been affected and when it hasn't, because we've got wonderfully complicated brains. But we do know it's time sensitive, and we do know it's important. I'm not going to go on about that, but there's loads and loads of research about that. And also we know that the environment drives the baby's brain, and what seems to be the case in psychology is if you have a calm environment around your baby, the baby can go into kind of thrive mode. It can start to explore and learn and play and open up new pathways. If the baby's in a stressed environment, and I mean the research, you have to be seriously stressed. We are talking in violent relationships, ongoing, so don't be worried if your baby's in a stressful environment. We only really know about the extreme cases, and it's in the extreme cases this pattern shows. Then what happens is the brain develops slightly differently. It develops more of a, what we call a threat system, more of a, oh gosh, I need to just check all the time that everything's okay. Does that make sense? So having an environment for the baby that is joyful and relaxed seems to be, according to research coming out, really a good thing for the whole of the baby's life. So this kind of matters, and what we really, really, really don't want to do is upset mothers about this fact, right? I really don't even want to tell mothers about this. All I want to say to mothers is, do you know what? When you're relaxed, your baby loves it. Why don't you put on a relaxation CD and just listen to that a couple of times a day? That's all she needs to know, right? I'm in danger, I know, because this was on a thread recently, of patronising mothers with this one. But I do think it's the professional's responsibility to take this on board, because the way to deal with this isn't to say to mothers, you need to de-stress. Is to say to other people, you need to take this pressure off this mother, and it's our society that's going to do that, right? And all society is doing is putting the pressure on the mother by showing the research that says if you're stressed or depressed, you're going to harm your baby. How is that in any way helpful? All it does is, it's just crazy. And yeah. Okay. So joy and relaxation enhance it seems to be, according to the research coming out, joy and relaxation enhances the mental health of the baby. We've got issues with the mother as well. So when the mother becomes a mother, as you know, there's loads of stuff going on for her as well. Her brain actually grows. Isn't that amazing? I thought mine shrank, but it didn't. And again, it's correlated with positive emotions. So the more joy and relaxation she can experience, the more you see this wiring happen. And it can be interrupted by negative emotions such as sadness and stress. Again, same message every time. We need to treat new mothers better. We really, really need to treat new mothers better. So I would argue that the reason we have problems is because mothers are responding to a toxic environment, an environment which expects them to get out of bed, get busy, look after the children, clean the house, go back to work, is not what nature designed her to be doing. Nature designed her to be resting, bonding with the baby, relaxing. And I honestly think, a bit of an idealist maybe, but the next big thing in the NHS is going to be getting postnatal care right. We've got supposedly got the labour wards right, we've got the birth pools, and we've got the nice lights, and we've got midwives trained in normality. Excuse me. But now we need to put some attention on postnatal care wards, how we look after women in the postnatal period. And as you know, we're the perfect profession to fill this gap. Okay, so while we're all changing society bit by bit, We've got a problem because we've got women who can't wait for that. They're struggling. So what can we do in the meantime? Oh, what's that slide? Okay. Sorry. So that's just reiterating what I was saying a minute ago, that mental health problems are about a mismatch between what we've evolved to expect and what our environment is providing for us, if that makes any sense. So in birth trauma, I would argue that our bodies and minds have evolved to expect calm, joyful births, but in a hospital system that often isn't met, and so we get traumatised mothers. It's the same with depression. Our bodies and minds have evolved to expect the village to support us when we've had our baby. When that doesn't happen, you get stress and anxiety. Kind of makes so much, it's just, isn't it obvious? It's obvious. Right. So, one thing that is going to become, again, quite a big thing, we can start doing it straight away if you're not already, is when you're working with a woman when she's pregnant, we want to be helping her to write her postnatal well-being plan. I don't know what word we're going to use, but I quite like that'll do, won't it? Postnatal well-being plan has already been termed. Help her think about. I know it's difficult because all she can think about is the birth. And so we're saying, actually, can we just go a bit beyond the birth and think about when the baby comes? And if they're frightened of the birth, that can be really difficult, actually. But if you can just get them to think beyond the birth and get them to think about, right, what are you going to do in the first 2 weeks that your baby arrives? And you often, they just look at you blankly and go, I don't know. Well, let's think about that. Can you imagine what that 2 weeks is going to be like? And haven't you got how are you going to get your rest and your sleep? Where are you going to eat? Where's your food going to come from? I'm not just talking about freezer meals in the freezer. I'm talking about breakfast and lunch as well. I'm talking about your drinks, etc., etc. Who's going to support you? Who's going to turn the visitors away if that's what you need? Because you're probably going to find that difficult. Who's going to do it for you, etc., etc. And then help, like in those 2 weeks maybe, or 2 months, or whatever you can get her to think about, both of them, help them to explore the ways in which they might elicit oxytocin. So it's the same as birth, but we're going postnatally. So right, you need oxytocin for birth, but actually you also need it for bonding and breastfeeding. So how are you going to elicit oxytocin in the first 2 weeks after you've had your baby? So there's lots of ways of doing that. Mindfulness does it, massage does it, time to yourself for some women is the way that they get that, relaxation techniques, having social contact, talking to people, having their friends around. Now, apparently, I don't know how true this is, but this can be very different for men. So men elicit, they have a different calm system to women. Women tend to be more calm and connect, whereas, Mark will tell us more about this, Mark Harris, whereas men tend to get their needs met via expressing testosterone. So they're more likely to need to go and play golf for the day. Again, being horribly stereotypical. This is supported to some extent by the science, I'm not quite sure how they can reduce stress, minimise housework, childcare responsibilities, etc. And then working with others. So you're not just working with the mum and dad, but maybe working with other people around them and say, well, how can you buy in, bring in help and support? What do you want from your mother? What do you want from your mother-in-law? What do you want from your father? What do you want from your father-in-law? Have you thought of a postnatal doula? Increase the cleaner, don't decrease it. Increase the toddler's childcare, don't decrease it, etc., etc. So there's a workshop we're going to do which is about debriefing for trauma. So this is helping women, particularly, and men who've had difficult births and who are struggling with that, especially in going into the second pregnancy usually. And he's asked me to mention it because the bookings are open. So if you want to book, there's a early bird offer going on till the end of, it says the end of today, but I've extended it to the end of March. And there's another cheeky plug, which I've already done, so I've done that twice now. That's double the cheek. Thank you very much for listening.